Hey guys, welcome back to the channel On the Level. So guess what? It's cold. I think it's 28 degrees right now. Water's muddy. Gonna do a little cold water cranking. Hopefully get a few bites. The water right now is 44.7, 46, somewhere around there. I'm just going off a guess of what this thing's telling me. So stay tuned. Hopefully you see some big spotted bass, maybe a couple big largemouth. But hopefully you learn something. So we're getting ready to start jacking them. Here we go. All right, so here we are, obviously cold water, high water. It's come down about 2 foot from where it was. It was full pond, now I think it's about 98. One of the most attractive things in the wintertime can be these boat ramps. Most people think it's because of the concrete and how warm it is, but it's actually the blowout at the end of them where people put their boats, load them. So if you're local around here and you know which ones actually get used, typically those are always going to be the better ones. I don't typically like to start out in the shade when it's this cold, but we're here, so it's too cold to run, so we're going to do it. Most important part when doing this is trying to make bottom contact as long as you can. Most of these baits are not very deep runners, so it's critical to find that speed that they want. And when you get a hold of that ramp, when you're searching for that blowout, there he is. It's a little better than average. It's a good way to start the day. First fish, you got to get down and get your hands wet. Come on. I think they're eating, boys. Not a bad way to start the day. Let's see, once again then, as soon as I tipped it, there's no one. God, what is this, Big Fish Thursday? Cold water cranking in the mud. Don't get any better than that. Back-to-back cast. Keeping that bottom contact is just so important. There'll be times when you're doing this where a bite feels like a leaf, and there'll be times like those right there where a bite feels like somebody dropped a hammer on it. And there's been times where I've caught 5, 6, 8 fish off a ramp. Typically though, when you get into the 2s and 3s, or the ramps just have one, they're usually those bigger fish. But make sure if you get bit on it, one key thing is to throw at it from all angles. I know that sounds weird, but if I was throwing across from over there this way, if there was multiple fish and they were packed when I catch one, sometimes you can pull them that way. And instead of them sitting back up on this side, they'll just stay over there where they're at. If you change the angle of the presentation, sometimes you get a few extra. And then sometimes, you know, you might have to change the bait. I'm using the 7-foot medium moderate crankbait rod. Only reason really I'm using this one is because it's designed for these smaller baits, but the bend, if I was somewhere else, it would be that medium heavy moderate. I very rarely ever am going to pull up on a bank and throw right at it and bring it straight back to me. I'm typically going to go from a 45 to a parallel, and I will fish it like a clock, especially a rounded point or something. but I'm never cranking for like hundreds of yards. Like I'm looking for a 25 to 50 yard section that is just a little different than everything else. You can use that, like you can use your eyes to find that if you don't have electronics, because you can look and see the high bank and what's flat. So obviously this bank right here, I kind of cheat with my electronics, but I can see that it's cut out a little more, so there's less shallow and then it's deep. So what'll happen is these pumps they use in the Carolinas especially, these water pumps run out. I've seen this in Texas too on Lake Travis. Those fish will use those water pipes and the boxes that they lay on just like a piece of brush or a tree. This is fun. Gosh, another hammer. On the midge. See, I'd gone to a wide wobbling. The first stop I was more at a flat side. All I'm doing is just crawling this thing down that clay. That's a big misconception people have, is they think, oh, the water's super cold, I gotta go to a flat side. And flat sides are good and can be really effective, but they have some downfall too. A lot of the best ones are wood, so they're hard to cast, very delicate, and some of the plastic ones just don't have the same kind of action. In dirty water, wintertime, it's hard to beat reds, oranges, brown and chartreuse, anything that's carp colored. One color that is pretty good in dirty water that a lot of people don't throw is white. It stands out real well. But I think once again, it's just like throwing a jerkbait or anything else. You've got to have confidence in what you're throwing if you're going to catch something on it. One cool thing that people don't realize about cranking in the wintertime especially, even when you have a little bit of dirt, that typically those first 2 hours of daylight are still the best time. Best time to catch them actively feeding. I don't know why that is, because it's cold. But I heard Kevin Van Dam one time, I think when my first year fishing, he said water temperature was overrated. And I believe that. And as long as I've fished, I've come to learn that the conditions, whether it's too hot, real cold, windy, no wind, the conditions seem to affect fishermen more than it does the fish. That's why I think a lot of people heading into the fall, they put top water down too early, because they see it get to 60. And at 58, on the right conditions, 58, you can have some monstrous topwater bites, especially like on a buzzbait and things like that. The biggest problem I see when people crankbait fish is they hit stuff and their first reaction is to do that. And they just have jerked it away. Remember that cast I was telling you about, white pipes? This is the biggest one yet. This is a really good one. Look at that thing. On the midge, crazy. I do a lot of short casting too when the water's dirty and I'm cranking. I don't do a whole lot of bombing. Came up underneath that float. So the final tip of the day, always, 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 when it's cold, fish the accesses. I know it sounds dumb, but they hold fish, lots of fish. Of course, some are better than others, particularly the ones where they have a lot of tournaments. But like those ones that I just caught over there a minute ago, they were totally 100% out of the wind, up on a nothing bank, sitting under the dock, looking out into the sun, wanting an easy meal. Look at that. Last cast, last one of the day. Boom. Nice. Fat. Spotted bass. Shallow cranking, done for today. All right guys, that's a wrap. Cold cranking, done quick, cold morning. Hope you learned something. If you did, go hit that subscribe button, like what's going on. Hey, if you got any more questions about baits and what to throw, getting ready to do another one on the best thing I got to throw in the winter when the water's muddy and you're shallow cranking. I'm going to show you the baits across the board. No sponsor connections, just straight across what works, why it works, and what's the best. See you next time on The Level.